You're listening to the Not So Black and White Real Estate Podcast with your hosts, Sir Colin Campbell and Gary A. McGowan.
Good day, good day, good day. It's your host, Sir Colin Campbell, here with Gary A. McGowan, and you're tuned into the Not So Black and White Real Estate Podcast. We're on site right now at Keller Williams Family Reunion, one of the largest real estate event. And we have the man, the myth, the legend, Adam himself. Adam, tell us why you're here, because in the Keller Williams world, you're a big deal. You might not think so of yourself, but we all think you're a big deal. So who's Adam?
Oh, man, that's a loaded question, right?
Yeah.
I always want to answer that from a spiritual perspective. I'm the one who gets to witness and experience life. But from the actual roles that I play in life, I started out in real estate in 2006. It's kind of an important conversation because we're coming back into that market now, right?
Yes.
And, it's really interesting. I'll tell you this funny story. When I got into real estate, I got my license in 2005 and 2006, like a couple months before 2005 ended, and I started in March of 2006. And people thought I was crazy, right? They're like, how are you getting and leaving a job to go into real estate where everything is... People are failing, banks are going out of business. My parents thought I was crazy, and I'm just like, at that point, I actually got more fired up to come into real estate because I just wanted to prove to everybody else that, like, if you surround yourself by other people and always be willing to take lessons and learn from things and honestly do the job and work, then anything is possible. And so, in the first 30 days that I entered into real estate, and people, it's funny because even my own team now from where we are forgets that I actually sold real estate, right? Like they actually did it. So, and we'll walk through this trajectory because I think it's kind of a fun path. I the first 30 days, we didn't have an office. I joined Remax, and they didn't have an office for me. So I worked out of a 400 square foot apartment with my, at the time with the girlfriend, now my wife. And I was so loud lead generating that she would shut the door and put me basically into a closet, and that's what I did.
Nice.
And I had no idea what I was doing. I borrowed $8,000 to kind of just get myself going. I actually ended up going to Howard Britton the first week that I got licensed. I remember the first hour that I was there and everyone was talking and giving me ideas. I was like, I can go home now. Anyways, I went home 2 days later. I just started hitting the phones. And I tell people, I worked 7 days a week, 8 to 9 hour days. And my goal at the time was, I just need to get an appointment a day. Did I hit? I know that sounds so easy now, but back then, that's what I woke up and did. I just said, I just need to get an appointment a day. And there was never this time blocking because the entire time, all I did was lead generate. I joke with my agents. They're like, okay, I did 3 hours. And I'm like,
get back to work.
Yeah. I'm like, well, did you get your goal? And they go, well, what do you mean? I go, did you hit it? And they go, no. I go, time blocking isn't a checkbox to make you feel better, right? It's not like sweeping your floor and you can check the box that you're ready to go through. And so the attitude that we just took was I'm going to go and I'm just going to get an appointment today. I would literally, we have pictures of this that we sometimes bring in Olivian, but of me delivering cookies to for sale by owners to get in the door. I did anything that I could to get an appointment. And so the first 30 days, me being licensed, I actually put 3 homes under contract within that first 30 days. And I showed up to my first office meeting. And it was the first time I'd been in the office since then. And people came up to me and they said, what'd you do? And I was like, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, what'd you do? I actually thought I did something wrong. and they were like, no, how did you put 3 homes under contract in less than 30 days? That's unheard of. And I go, it is? And they're like, yeah. And I go, let me ask you another question. Well, what'd you do? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And come to find out, when I ended up getting an office in there, people don't actually treat this as a job, right? They don't show up. They don't do this. And I think right now, if you want to be in real estate, this is a wonderful profession. I love everything about this. And there's endless opportunities for you. But you still have to show up and do the work, right? So that fast forward, I ended up, I live in Vermont and there's more cows than there are humans. And so at some point when I became the number one agent in a couple years, number one team. And at the time, remember, I was carrying 100, and this is where people build these big teams. And it's kind of funny because I was doing 140 transactions myself with one assistant.
Dude, wow.
And so it was Hallie and I who, we wrote the book Founder and Force Multiplier on this.
An amazing book, by the way. Read that book. I think it was, when were we in Dallas? That is 2019, most likely. Yeah. So that's when I read that book, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Awesome.
So
well, thank you. Yeah.
Beautiful book. Well done there.
Yeah, thanks. And and so we had this model, and so then I kind of hit this point. I actually got really bored after a couple years, probably like a lot of us. And so I started actually trying to determine how many minutes I could spend with a client and get their house sold. And literally, this is actually, because it's got a funny
So you
story.
became transactional.
Well, I became like, so then I created this listing video of me doing the listing presentation. I had clients come into the office because I'm inherently very lazy. And so everyone kind of came in here and we had this whole system built out for this whole thing. And Gary caught wind of it, and I just started in Keller Williams. I just opened up a brokerage, and I went on the main stage and I kind of shared this whole thing, and people are like, that's not true. Like, that you can't do that. And so then I said, well, hold on. I had like 30 people fly up from Gary's top 100 at the time, and they all sat in a conference room watching me do this entire listing presentation. You know, they watched a video of me. I came in there, and within 15 to 28 minutes, basically, I would have the contract signed, and I had upfront fees. I had 7% listing and a back end fee as well. And it just, this was part of our plan for a couple years. And then, of course, as most people do, I got bored of that. And so then I just said, hey, in 2011, a small group of us said, you know, we were with Gary, and he said, you need to expand your business. It actually wasn't even called expansion then. We called it duplication.
Okay.
And so the first thing that we did is I didn't have the opportunity like other people did to go and expand in their state because we didn't have any other people to sell to, right?
You were the number one.
Yeah. So I ended up going 2 states over and starting a team in Maine, and you know, we took a $6 million producer and made them a $60 million producer in a couple years, and we used the same model and systems that we are, and we called it duplication. And then, of course, you know, over the next couple years, we went through a lot of trials and errors. I spent millions of dollars, lost millions of dollars, all money that we were making, investing it back in there, you know, for probably 4 or 5 years, trying to, I always tell people, like, if you want to expand 1 or 2 locations in your area, you probably don't need to change much. But the minute you get past 3 or 4, all of a sudden everything else changes. It's you know, if you ever been like, run and like you're holding like a certain running pace and you're like, this is really easy. But then somehow you just go one step.
Let me step it up.
One step further, and you go a little faster, and it's that much harder.
Yeah.
That's how it felt like, kind of expanding. It was just like everything became so much harder. The people needed to be more refined. People needed to be different. You know, you have different systems, all those different things. So anyways, we ended up expanding in there, worked through all those things. And then, you know, 13 years later, here we are, you know, and we've got, you know, we're in 38 states. I think we did, you know, 45 or 48 million in GCI last year, you know, for what those are. And you know, we're growing every day, right? And but a lot of lessons learned, and it's been a wild journey. But I think what I want people to take away from that is, if I can do this, anybody can. I'm not smarter than anybody. I don't have any notion or preconceived like people in real estate that helped me. So I started off in the worst economic market that was there. So if you're listening to this and you're new, like, this is your opportunity too. Yeah. If you just show up, I always call this is the year of your inner pro, and everybody's inner pro looks a little bit different. Everyone's going to show up a little bit differently. But in the year of excellence, your inner pro has to show up. So what's the best way you're going to do it? And as we've been hearing from Gary and everybody else all day, it's like, it's a job and work. I mean, how many times did he say that? Because I think people have this idea that coming into real estate is easy. Like somehow, like, just deals are going to fall in my lap. There's plenty of business for you to get I always call it like your fair share of your work that you do, but it's going to require a disciplined approach to it.
Interesting.
There's a lot there we can unpack. Like, I love it. I love it. And I said yesterday to someone, I just wish they were passionate about their business and other people's business. But here's what I want to know is, you know, you've said it yourself. You know, tremendous amount of opportunity, tremendous amount of learning through mistakes and everything like that. Over the last 10 years, if you go back and say to yourself 10 years ago, here's a business lesson, or here's a life lesson that it'll change the way you do business. Tell us, what would that be? Is there something specific, or is it a broad approach?
Yeah, my answer will probably be a little bit differently. For me, I made business an inner journey for me. 30-second kind of background on this. When I was in my early 20s, I was very egotistical. I was very much about Adam. I was very much about, I needed to be making sure everyone knew who I was. You know, that similar story that some people kind of hear. But for me, I also had this goal that, like, hey, if I made $500,000 in income, I was going to somehow be this magical god. Like, and I was going to be in a perpetual state of bliss and joy, and it was going to be amazing, right? And so I just set out and did that, right? And so in my early 20s, or I'm sorry, my late 20s, like 27 or 28, I actually hit that number. And all of a sudden, I remember this vividly. I was at dinner with my mom, who's the most unassuming individual. She could care less about money at all. And I said, hey, Mom, you know what? I just made this amount of money last year. And she was like, great, pass the ketchup. And in that moment...
we love our moms.
Yeah, we do. But in that moment, I realized that people actually don't care.
Yeah. No.
They really don't. No. Like, they really don't care. And so I'm like, okay, then this doesn't work. It's not that it's wrong. It's not that I want to stop being, in business. It's not like I want to go sit in a cave and, with a fire, Indian style, like reciting haikus. Like, that's not what I want to do either. So I want to build this. And so I had this kind of phrase that business is a conduit for my personal growth or spiritual growth. And so from that point on, I made my life about this inner journey, about using every opportunity that business presents to let go of the part of me that's not okay with what's happening. And I always reference this as like the 200% life, right? There's 100% outer world. Those are goals. Those are material things. They're the nouns, people, places, and things. Their relationships, their kids, their experiences, how you spend your money. Those are all wonderful things. The roles we play as a CEO, as an agent, as a leader, some days you're not leading, some days you're a janitor, right? It's all these different roles that we play, but none of them are really you. They're just things that you're doing while you're here. And so the 200% life concept for me was about understanding that I could go out and play in this world and build a big business and really enjoy it by letting go of the outcome, but being really laser focused on my goals, but letting go of the personal gain from any of these goals. So therefore I was never attached to it, which actually makes you a very fierce competitor because you're no longer needing to get anything from anybody. But when it comes, again, you enjoy those experiences. The other 100% of this is really this inner life, right? And I always look at it as three different things. You have a voice in there, right? And if people don't know, like, there's a voice that talks to you in there, right? Everyone hears it. Mm-hmm. In fact, even when you're listening to this podcast right now, how many are you actually listening to us talk, or are you listening to the mind narrate the conversation on what you like or don't like about what we're being said right now? So like there's that voice that's in there. Then of course you have emotions, which everyone feels. And you know what the cool thing about emotions are? If you just pause for a second and recognize that you are incredibly talented at distinguishing the slightest difference between emotion, like the energy that you feel, because you go, hold on, I'm frustrated, and then you go, wait, I'm no longer frustrated. I'm actually irritated. I'm not even irritated anymore. I'm a little upset now, right? And it's just a subtle difference in energy. So you're in there actually being able to do this, and so then of course you have your spiritual heart, which is a longer conversation. But when I actually took the thing that made it very a success in my life, not just financially, but for the things that we're doing, was actually treating the world as 200%. So that I woke up every day just asking one simple question, which is, how do I want to feel today? Mm-hmm. How do I want to? Because really what people are after is this inner experience. Most people are trying to manipulate or rearrange the outside world in a way to make sure that their thoughts and emotions are okay with the outside world. Well, if you want to play checkmate with life, you just kind of wake up and go, I'm going to be okay with everything, but yet I'm still going to make decisions. I'm still going to play with things. I'm still going to build this stuff, but I'm really okay with things. That's playing checkmate with it. So the advice, kind of, if I look back at that, getting clear as an individual, as a human being, allows you to make better quality decisions. And as a leader, what your work product is decision making, right? If you understand businesses that are wildly successful versus businesses that are marginally successful is the decision making process by the leaders every single day. So I always work backwards and then say, well, how do you put yourself in a position so that you are the clearest you can be every single day to make the highest quality decisions that you can, so that it furthers your organization? If you make a 10% better decision every single day, think about where that business is going to be in 5 years. That's the main difference. That's why when you look at businesses, it's not really one decision that does it, but it's every decision that is made is what really facilitates the economic and spiritual personal growth of the experience of building a business.
The last couple of minutes there is bang on.
That's gold.
I love it, and I know we could talk for another couple hours.
We could.
This is amazing, and one day we'll have to.
Yeah.
But I've been following you for such a long time. I always appreciate your candidness and your
humbleness.
There you go.
maybe you weren't like that early 20s, but your humbleness now. So
Thank you.
Yeah. Quickly, how do people get a hold of you?
Sure, yeah. You can go to adamhergenrother.com, and that's going to link you up to our podcast, to Livian, to our Founder and Force Multiplier, to any of the things that we're doing. We give a tremendous amount of stuff for free, so go to adamhergenrother.com and check us out.
Well, there you go, my friends. That is our interview with Adam Hergenrother. Such a pleasure. He's Sir Colin Campbell. I'm Gary McGowan, and we'll see everybody in the next episode. Goodbye for now.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to click the subscribe button so new episodes will automatically be downloaded to your device. Please help us reach more people by leaving a rating and a review on your podcast player of choice. Now go make it an amazing day for somebody.